Okay, today we're gonna make a berry bowl. I have my clay here. I've got about 1.5 pounds of clay. It doesn't matter how much clay you use for this. It depends on what size you want your berry bowl. This is gonna be a small one, so 1.5 pounds. I've got my bat on my wheel head. I put just a tiny bit of water on that bat, and that is gonna stick the clay right to the bat. Slam that on. Get it kind of centered, and that water will just help it stay on. Gotta turn my wheel on. Wet your hands, and we're gonna center this piece. So I take my elbow and I put it in the side, and then I'm gonna push the clay away from me with my left hand, mostly using the pad of my hand right here. And then my fingertips on my right hand are gonna pull the clay towards me. I'm just gonna hang on to this clay, try to get it nice and centered right on that bat. I'm gonna start at the bottom and then just comb that clay right up. That's gonna help center it. Now, if you're having a hard time with this, or you just have a really large piece of clay, what you can do is start with this little top half and just hold that, get it nice and centered so your hands aren't shaking. Go down a little bit, hold that, same thing, go down a little more. And then bring it all up together. Once your clay is centered, then you'd push this clay down. This has still got a little bit of a wiggle to it, so I'm just gonna hang on to it a little bit. If your clay is dry, it'll be a little harder to center. But you still can, you'll get it. Make sure when you're taking your hands on and off of your clay, you're moving slow and it's one hand at a time. You don't want to do both hands at a time or you'll uncenter it. So make sure it's one hand at a time. Once it's nice and centered, I'm going to push this clay down. So I'm going to stick my thumb up on my left hand. I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to do a little karate chop kind of movement. So it's my hand's going to wrap around that thumb, and then I'm going to go push that clay down. Now I don't want this to mushroom over. So if you look here, you can see that this has kind of got a little bump over. We're going to try to keep that all in using the pad of my hand on my left hand, pushing that in. Then my right hand is going to push it down from the center. It's going to go to the side. And it's going to go back to the center. And I'm going to keep doing that until I get down where I would like to be. And make sure you don't get this little indent right on the bottom there. To keep that away, take your left hand and instead of having it straight up and down, angle it out a little bit. The bottom part of your hand just goes out just a little bit. Once you get it down where you'd like it, we're going to open this. I'm going to use a sponge at this point. I'm going to get it nice and wet. I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to go down in the center here. So I take my right hand, I use my middle finger. You can use whatever finger you'd like. That one's just the strongest on my hand. My left hand is going to wrap around and it's going to push. So both hands are working together to push down. I do not want to hit the bat, so I just go down as far as I think is a good distance. And then you can stop your wheel and check your thickness. So I take a pin tool. I stem my clay, not directly in the center of that clay, but off a little bit. I take my finger and I put my nail right down to that clay. I hold it on the pin tool, keeping it on that pin tool, pull the clay out. My thickness right now is right there. That's a pretty good thickness. I'll be able to put a nice foot on and still have drainage. So that's the thickness I'm going to keep it. You can go a little bit lower if you want, but you won't have this big of a foot. So now that I have that, I know I want to come open a little bit. So I'm going to do that same technique. My hands are wrapped together, and then I'm going to pull that clay straight back towards me, trying to keep the very bottom here that same thickness. I don't want to go up and down. I want to keep it even. Now I'm going to compress. I'm going to start on this outer corner, and I'm going to work towards the center. I do that with my 2 fingers on my right hand. My left hand overlaps, and then I push together. I go past that center point just barely, and then go back out. Do this a few times, pressing pretty hard. You don't want an S crack in the center there, so I'm just going to press down and go back and forth until it feels nice and even. Sometimes you can feel the air in there, and you just want to make sure you get rid of that. Once that feels good, then we're going to donut this clay. By donuting, I'm going to take my left hand, I'm going to put it in a C shape. My thumb is going to go on the outside, touching the bat. My fingers are going to go on the inside. And that's my left hand. My right hand is going to overlap. It's going to be touching my left hand. It's going to overlap right over the top. And I'm going to be pushing in with my thumb on the outside hand. And then I'm going to just create like a donut shape with this clay. And my right hand is just pressing down, keeping this all nice and steady and it all together. Once it feels like you are nice and even and steady, we're going to make our first pull. I'm going to keep these fingers on my left hand the same distance apart, and I'm going to pull up. You want both hands touching at all times. It's going to help you with stability. You also want both hands touching your legs. So I have my elbows touching my legs, and that helps with stability. You'll have this little triangle going on. You want to keep that shape the whole time you're throwing. Now once I did my first pull, I'm going to come over here. If you're looking down at a clock, it would be a 3 o'clock. I'm going to press in at the very bottom, get a little groove down there. Now you'll notice that my thumb on my left hand is touching my right hand. Then I bring my fingers from my right hand right up till I can feel them with my left hand, and then both hands go together. Now I don't want to go past that rim, but go right up to it. Once you get to that point, take your hands off slowly, your right hand. Your left hand can stay touching your pot. My right hand is going to wrap around that rim and just regroup that rim. Now I'm going to come and do the same thing again. Press in and down with the right hand. Bring that clay up. Both hands can feel the clay and the other hand, and then they go up together. Regroup this rim. Press in at the bottom. Move that hand up. Then both hands going together. Regroup this rim. I'm going to just get anything out of that center that's fallen in. I'll make one more pull. Push in at the bottom. Both hands should be touching each other. The outside hand comes up first. Then they both come together. Once you get up to that rim, we're going to regroup it. Now I've got this little shape Doesn't look too much like a bowl, so I'm going to start bowling it out. I'm going to take a rib. Oh, maybe this one. It's pretty dirty, but got this yellow bowl rib. It looks like this. And these are great to do any kind of a bowl shape. I'm going to take that rib. It's going to go on the inside of my pot. It can go any direction you want it. This is the direction I'm going to hold it. Now I want my thumb on my outside hand to touch my inside hand. And I'm going to just kind of press out with the rib. Just let it start getting the shape that I like. Just kind of play with it. You can round it until it's whatever shape you prefer. Get this shape going. I want to take my rim and kind of pull it out a little bit. First I'm going to clean up the bottom. I don't want any moisture left inside. So I want my rim to just kind of flare out a little. So I'm just going to pull it down with my inside hand. My outside just sits there for support. Remember, both hands should be touching each other. They're a team. They should be working together. Your elbows need to be resting on your legs so you have that support. And then you have a bowl. I'm going to clean up the bottom here. You don't need to do that, but I prefer to so I don't have to trim it later. I take my wooden tool, my wooden knife, take it at a slight angle, and I just kind of cut that out. Notice both hands are working together again. Just clean that up. I've got the bowl. I like to take one of these cheap sponges and just clean my bat so you get all the water off of that. I don't use my natural sponge for that because it wears it out too fast. And I take my cut-off wire. Don't wrap it around your finger. You'll lose a finger. I like to take the wire and put my hands on the wire and then the little wooden ends on outside. And then I take my fingers, press down like this, and cut across. Make sure your fingers are touching the bat and that wire is between your fingers and the bat so that you don't pull up a little. And there you go. Your piece is ready to dry so it can be trimmed and finished the next day. We're going to trim our berry bowls. Here's our bowl. It's still connected to our bat. What we need to do is pop this off. And so you don't warp it, a good way to do is just kind of bend the bat. They're very flexible, so you can do that and it just pops it right off. So, remove that. I'm going to set it to the side on this clean bat. Semi-clean. Then I want to put my Giffen grip on because I'm going to use this to trim. You don't have to use a Giffen grip. You can use wads of clay or just stick it to your wheel head. When I put this on, I don't want these little pieces on the back of my Giffen grip to hit these pins. So I make sure that my pins are straight across like this. And then this foot goes straight in front at the top. So I'll connect that and then I'll pop these down. This one's a little bit on the tight side, but that makes sure it's not hitting those pins. So now I want to take my bowl and I want to check my thickness so I know how much to trim off. So I put my left hand on the inside of the bowl. I take my pin tool. I poke not in the very center of my bowl, but off center a little until I can fill it with the inside hand. And then I pull that up. And that's how thick my bottom is right now. So I'm going to mark that on there. And I'm going to rub that out, that hole that I put in there. And then I'm going to also rub the inside to get rid of it. Now when you're doing your foot, your thickness here, I left a lot of extra clay because I want to have a big foot. So there's a lot of extra drainage. So right now, this is how thick the bottom of my pot is, from there to there. I want it, it to be this thick in the end. So this here is what I'm going to remove. So I'm going to mark that with my trimming tool when I'm ready. Just that, so I know to remove that much. So first I'm going to attach it to the Giffen grip. Set it right there. And then cinch it in. Now I got to be a little bit careful. It's a little wet and I don't want to warp it too much, but I do want it tight enough that it's not going to go flying. So once it's on there, I'm going to grab this little tool right here. I like this end to start. You can tell this one's a little bit wider and rounder. This one's more straight. So I take that, I put it on that area I want to remove. I take my thumb and I mark it right up to the end of the clay here. So I know that that right there is what needs to be removed. So once I've got that, I'm going to rest my left hand on my leg, turn my wheel on, rest my left hand on my leg, not up close to me, but closer to my knee. And then my hand is actually going to touch the pot, spin my wheel, take my right hand, I'm going to touch my left hand's thumb, and then I'm going to go straight down in the middle, and I'm going to keep going until my thumbnail hits the clay. So I know all that needs to be removed. Now I'm going to ignore the bottom of the clay, or of my pot here, and I'm going to work on the side. I want a larger tool. I'm going to go with this one. And I'm just going to start trimming. My left hand is going to be touching my pot just to keep it secure. My right hand is resting on my leg again. We want those 3 points. So I've got my arm, my hands are touching each other, and then my left hand is kind of tucked in. So I'm nice and stable. My hands are not moving with the pot. They're staying nice and stable. I'm just going to trim off any extra clay we have here, which there's always quite a bit. So let's just get rid of some of that. And you want quite a bit on the bottom here for stability for your pot while it's wet and before it can dry. It needs something to help hold it up. I think my tool's a little worn out. I'm just going to kind of go down. And you can go in any direction when you're trimming. Now when you're trimming and you're going to create a foot, make sure you're not rounding this off when you get up here. You want this defined edge from your side to your bottom. You get a defined line right there, and that's how you know where to put your foot. So I'm going to take this tool again, and then my left hand touching the pot, my both hands touching each other. I'm going to take that tool right where that line is, and I'm going to go straight down. And that's going to be the outside of my foot. Now this here is just extra clay. I'm going to get rid of it. Just trim that right away. Get rid of it. We don't need any extra weight. All right, now I want you to decide how big you want this foot, how wide. Go a little wider than what you think you want, because you can always get rid of some of it. So I'm going to go right about there. It's a little bigger than what I'm thinking, but like I said, you can get rid of it if you don't want it. And just go straight down. That'll give you a line so you know where to stop, so you don't accidentally trim your foot away. So now I'm just going to get rid of this clay in the center. That's just extra weight. Get rid of it. This one's really catching. I think my tool is getting too worn out. So let me grab a different tool. This one looks like it's a little bit newer. The faster you go when you're trimming, the easier it is to trim. You'll get a more even trim on your stuff. Until I kind of warped that when I caught it. So I'm just going to take a little bit off at a time. Just keep going down until you no longer have that dent on the inside that where you remove the clay. Go really slow with your hands. Your hands should be moving like little turtles, and your wheel should be super fast. I guess I shouldn't say super fast, but a lot faster than your hands. All right, so now I've got that right down there so it's even. I want to round these sides. We don't want any sharp edges, so I'm going to just round this like so. I don't want any sharp edges. I don't round the top because sometimes you make that uneven. So right now it's nice and even, so we'll want to keep it that way. But I do want to get rid of any sharp edges. All right, so now this is nice and trimmed and ready to put holes in it. So first thing I'm going to do is follow my feet here and remove part of the foot of my bowl. That way the water doesn't get trapped right in there. So I'm going to take this little hole puncher, go straight up from this foot and remove that. I'm going to do it on all three of them. Just remove part of the foot. That way you'll have nice drainage. I do like to take my finger across that and just kind of smooth out the edges. Same thing, you don't want anything sharp. It gets a lot sharper once it's fired. You want it to be really comfortable for people to hold. Got that. I might remove a little bit more. I can see. There we go. And now you'll just want to put holes. All right, so with this, I'm going to just cut my holes into little flowers. So I'm going to do a hole like that. Pop that off. I'm going to do maybe just a little one in the middle. And that didn't go all the way through. You don't have to make your holes look like a design, but I sometimes think it's fun, so this one needs to be a little bit. try to keep your holes down lower because this is where the water is going to be, is down on this bottom part of it. Up here, mostly water is not going to be draining. You can do it if you want, but it's not going to be for any purpose besides looks. All right, get a couple more in. I almost always push this out of the tool so you don't have it stuck inside there and have to deal with having a whole bunch of clay in the way. So that kind of helps. And turning this, instead of pressing straight in, I kind of make a turning motion, and that helps cut it through it also. I think I'll do one more here, and then I'll do some on the bottom. Don't want to forget the bottom because that's where all of the water is going to be sitting. So well, you have this upside down too. That's a great time to put your chop in or sign it, or however you want your maker's mark to be. I'm going to take this and just, it's my maker's mark here, and I will just shove it right into the foot like that. So you have that on there. And then I want handles on this. You do not have to put handles. You could leave it as is. But I do like handles, and when I do my handles for these bowls, I like to do a little cutout. I want to push this clay through because it was stuck right in the middle there. Okay, so put this on my wheel, and I use this little cup here and a pin tool. And I have little lines on it, so I know you can't see them. It's old and worn out because I've used it a lot, but I have little lines right there. And so I take it and I match my lines up to the rim. Actually, just this way, sorry. Match my lines up to the rim here. And then I trace that. And then I go from the very center of that to the very center of my pot, which is actually right where that groove is. and then up, and I know that the center of my next one is going to be right there. I like to go from the bottom because it's easier to find the center of the pot. And then I'm going to put this right up to it with that line in the center of it and trace that. Well, that does not have to be perfect in any means. I just draw it on there so I know where to cut. Get that. I will use let's see, what am I going to use? I'm going to use this baby. This little tool. This is, I don't remember. Duncan cleanup tool. Use that, and I'm going to just remove this clay right here. This is all just extra work. This is not something you have to do at all. It's just something I do because I like the look of it in the end. But when you're doing these, you do not have to add a handle at all. If you do add a handle, you don't have to make any cuts in it. You can just attach it right to the top. I like to attach that, wet my fingers, just soften that a little bit so I don't have any sharp edges. And my hand seems to work the very best for that. And then I'm going to get a couple pieces of clay out and make the handles. So I've got clay already in the extruder. Press really hard and get 2 pieces out. So get back in here. I've got my 2 strips of clay. Right now they're different sizes, but they'll be the same in a minute. Lay them across here. So I know that I want this to go up a little bit on my piece. So I'm going to kind of mark that I want that size. And then I know I want some coming off. So I do a little loop like that. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing with this other piece. So my handles are the same size. I'll put them together, pinch it, and just go in the opposite direction so that these are the same. All right, so now I want to pull them apart. I'm going to cut off this extra. Take a serrated rib, use the straight side, and just remove the extra clay there. Do that with both of them. Then you don't have to worry about messing with that later. I've got too much on that one. All right. So now I'm going to take my bowl and I'm going to wet where my handle's going to attach. Get nice and wet. Take my handle upside down and I'm going to score it. Anywhere it's going to attach to the bowl needs to be scored. We want that to create that slip that's in there. Once you have that, set it on here And I kind of just pinch it on how I want it and adjust it. And I pull these sides down because I just think that looks better than sitting on top, but you do it however you like it. You're the artist. Just use my hands and just keep maneuvering it till it is exactly how I had envisioned. There you go. If you want to take a paintbrush and clean up any of the slip that kind of seeped out, you can do that. But there's your handle. Throw the other one on. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Wet my piece. Score this with water. And then attach. Now it's good to also make a tray or some kind of a little plate so that when people do wash their berries and they're using this, there's a plate for all the water to go onto so they can display it at the same time without making a big mess. And we'll have a video of that also. Just check our page. If you want different techniques on how to make this, check out Rose Levesque. She is in the same platform. Just like to clean up any messy parts I got there. So there we go. We've got our handles on our berry bowls, and we just need to set it out to dry.